And we did our presentation on the cloud and how it can be implemented into the financial world. Okay, so just a little background on our article. It's called Google and Amazon Vie for Big Inroad into Wall Street. And so it basically talks about how the SEC is thinking of making a movement of financial data into one database into the cloud. And this database will be called Consolidated Audit Trail. And the article basically talks about the pros and cons about implementing the system into one database of all the financial trading information and stock options and such. And it also talks about how tech firms building this database and their access to this data could be potentially dangerous and possible data breaches. And what got us first interested in this article is we kind of use cloud even, like cloud databases even now. Like if people have an iPhone or Mac products, they have an iCloud where they can send up their photos and keep their entire family's photos in one place, or OneDrive to save their computer's work and files and such.
So why does all of this matter to us? Basically, even for this class, we have to sometimes upload assignments online. And even though we don't use the cloud, new technology is coming out where for college and for the workforce, you're going to need to be able to have the knowledge to use the new technology and upload work or assignments onto like a bigger database where everyone is on it. So it's just good to kind of have this background knowledge of how to um, get there and how to be able to use all the new stuff that's coming out. And another thing is this article talked about everything, the entire market going into this system called CAT, right, like as we mentioned. And our generation is always online, it seems like. So it's just good to know how we can create systems to prevent uh, things from going wrong, basically. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, have um, witnessed hacking or cyber attacks. So it's just good to kind of have that knowledge to be able to work for companies that will create systems to minimize hacking. Um, and then I know we've done this before, but show of hands, who's a finance major in here? A lot of us. So just kind of having the knowledge of what we're about to go into after we graduate and what's really going on in the market, what new developments are happening is just good to know for our future as finance majors. And then also the article, like I mentioned, talks about CAT and even mentions companies that are trying to fight to create the system that is CAT. And it basically says that companies are fighting for it and that they are looking for people to help, kind of. So it's basically future job prospectus for us for creating the system.
And the reason why SEC want to create a storage quota is because of a flash crash that happened in May 2010 that made millions of dollars just disappear from the stock market. So there's two technology giants, Amazon and Google. They they're creating cat and because some people, like some Wall Streeters, don't strongly disagree with them because they contain the millions of their customer personal information, and the they're scared that the companies like Amazon and Google will take control over them, so they won't be have full control of their stock market and can be easily access to their information.
Some of the pros of this system is basically like they will be able to analyze and all the trading information involved with the financial market, and SEC will be able to know all the daily orders of a company and the exchanges, and it can be accessed remotely. SEC already has access to all this information. It's just they don't have a database to make it quickly analyze every single where it went wrong, what we could like potential wrong in the future. And so basically SEC wants to do this to make it easier for them to facilitate the stock market.
Now here's what we learned from the article. Now I think it's safe to assume that that you know the implication of data on the financial industry. Every decision that is made, whether it's to buy, sell, short a stock, whether it's made by the CEO or a financial analyst, is driven by data. Everything is driven by data. Who knows the amount of money that flows to this, let's say, New York Stock Exchange on a given day? Does anybody know? Yes, that's a lot of money, and also that's a lot of data to go through, right? So for financial analysts to for financial regulators to, let's say, find out or to track, let's say, a flag that would potentially put financial institutions or the average American at risk, takes a long time. In fact, it takes 2 to 3 days for financial regulators without CAT, using the current system that they use right now, to sift through the data that they need to first locate the data that they need and then to go through and analyze it. It takes a long time. And that further delays the amount of progress that they can achieve in a given time. The two things that arises from that is, one, it's harder for you to locate something that would potentially put another institution or person at risk. But also, with the cloud, any trade that you make by the end of today, you'll be able to access it by noon of the next day, which means that you have not only the ability to figure out what happened, say, using the example of the May 2010, or another one which also pushed this program. There was in August of last year, the market dropped by 1,200 points. And so when that happens, it allows the financial regulators to go back and look through the data more quickly to figure out what the problem is, and more importantly, to solve the problem. Another thing that enables the financial regulators to do is track at a much more at a much less time what happens, and be able to stop that kind of drop from happening in the first place and preventing it. And so those were that's one of the pros, as discussed by SSB as well. The problem with CAT, however, is that the SEC and FINRA are depending on Google and I believe Amazon, right? Amazon, to build this infrastructure. And there are two problems that the analysts or hedge funds that the institutions bring up. One is that it costs a lot of money for SEC and also for the institutions to uphold. Even though it saves a lot of money in the long term, to build and implement it, it does cost quite a bit of money. The second thing is it gives them the advantage to Google and Amazon because they now have a lot of money, and that they have now a lot of data that they could potentially access, even though they have agreed with the SEC and FINRA that they are not going to access it, and they will only use it for regulations, also giving access to the SEC. The potential risks of that are what concerns a lot of analysts, concerns a lot of heads in the institutions, financial institutions, and so even though the opposition to CAT has been declining over the years as it's been progressing, there's still some opposition to it, mainly because of the potential advantage. and risks that it imposes on not only other institutions but also other competitors in that particular industry, and also to the citizens as well.
Okay, so Kat, like as these guys mentioned, we're all finance majors, and this is mainly the finance world market transitioning to the cloud. And as finance majors, like directly affects all of us students because it's sort of our future and our jobs will like operate and like how we like what kind of jobs we like operate and go into. Um, it's important because already, like for this class, for example, like, we already use the cloud to submit our assignments, so it directly already affects our education. And for our career effects, because in the article it mentioned Amazon and Google and other companies are already transitioning to the cloud and helping to make the financial market go into the cloud. So it opens up new jobs for students like us for the future and new perspectives for it to come in the future. Yeah.
This is from Sasha.
Thank you.